So he did it. 1,000 points. Oddly enough, I wasn't watching that game at that point. There was something on TV which really caught my interest. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go watch the Pittsburgh game. It's 2-0. He's got the point, doesn't he? Here's the thing. Sidney Crosby is I think they said the 12th fastest to reach that goal. There's always an argument regarding point totals now compared to point totals in the 80s, point totals in the 90s, blah, 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 blah. Just like in the 80s, there was arguments about those point totals compared to point totals in the 50s and in the 60s. And I'm sure back then there were arguments about those point totals compared to the 30s. And then in the 30s, you'd have arguments about, yeah, but back in our day, they didn't even have forward passing. So Joe Malone was the greatest goal scorer of all time. And we can have this debate forever. Sidney Crosby is one of the greatest ever. Now, in terms of when he got that 1,000th point, the bench didn't clear. So it wasn't like Vancouver with Henrik. And Henrik took almost 500 more games. There's a reason. Henrik's career is almost over. Sidney's is not. The the Penguins, I'm looking at this hat, and for some reason Ducks came to mind. The Penguins are on a mission to get another Stanley Cup. Crosby's on a mission to get another Stanley Cup. So his 1,000th point isn't even a consideration for him. It's just, okay, I got this, fine. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't have 1,001 by the end of tonight, or even 1,002, with the way the Penguins have been playing lately. In terms of the greatest of all time, and I'm gonna just throw this out there. For me, Gretzky's still the greatest. Lemieux is still 1B. 1B because Lemieux might very well be the greatest, other than the fact there were a lot of injuries in his prime and a lot of time that he spent out of the game, and then, his back bothered him, and he wasn't 100%. So we never really got to see Lemieux compared to Gretzky. I would put Crosby at number 3. The sustained excellence he has shown, I would put at number 3. There are people who are going to say, what about Jagr? Jagr had a lot of downtime when he was a Capital. He had downtime in other stops along the way. Right now, everybody's got this love fest for Jagr, and I appreciate it. I'm fine with it. But when he went to the KHL, there were Rangers and Capitals fans who were not big fans of Jagr's. And this love fest probably wouldn't have happened with him when he was a Capital. In fact, I'm certain it wouldn't have. So I don't put Jagr ahead of Crosby. Jagr's got the longevity going for him. But in terms of forwards, in terms of scorers, in terms of impact on the game, Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby. So if you're an Oilers fan, you're like, where's McDavid fit in? I don't know. He's in his second year. Talk to me when he's played about 5 years. You got to have about 5 years in the NHL. You got to have a chance to play for a contending team, and the Oilers are not there yet. They're getting there. They're not there yet. Neither are the Leafs. So you can't have Austin Matthews in any conversation as a rookie. So there's that. But I'm very happy for Crosby to have got it out of the way. I'm very happy it was not against the Canucks. I'm sorry, Jets fans, but I'm very happy it was not against the Canucks the other night. I was convinced it was going to be against the Canucks. He is simply a dominant offensive forward. And like I said, I would put him at number 3. I'm sure people are going to mention Lindros. Lindros for me is top 10. Lindros was a dominant forward in the NHL for a couple of years in terms of him being way above everybody else. But it didn't last. There were injuries. There were things happened. And Forsberg became part of that conversation. So Forsberg, and that's another one, injuries. And I was thinking about doing a video the other night. Like I should do a video on guys whose careers were cut sadly short, so that guys like Bure, Neely, Forsberg, Correa, they're standing in the all-time greats, and Lindros, they're standing in the all-time greats, is diminished because they don't hit that 500 goal, they don't hit that 1,000th point, they don't hit those big milestones, they don't have the big farewell tour, so to speak, because their careers were shortened by injury. Correa was very limited his last couple years in the NHL and just couldn't do it anymore, and the injuries caught up with him. And it's sad to watch that happen to a player. And for Crosby, I think the big thing for me with Sid, is his perseverance despite injuries. So Sidney's place as number 3, to me, I don't see that as an insult, because Lemieux and Gretzky are, I think, the greatest offensive players in the history of the game. You can have the argument over who was the more complete players, but Gretzky killed penalties, Lemieux killed penalties. They did everything. Lemieux hit. Lemieux was a feared player. He was a big guy. Mario was a force on the ice, and if not for injuries and all of that, but I digress. Sidney's place, and you can look and say, well, he's the 12th fastest. A lot of that's going to be guys from the 80s. I don't even have to look at the list. I know it's going to be a number of guys from the 80s who, if they played in today's game, would not have made it there that quickly. The important thing is this: Crosby is a Hall of Famer right now. If Crosby went, I'm done with the game. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not having fun anymore. I quit. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has multiple Stanley Cup rings to his name at a time when multiple Stanley Cup rings are hard to come by if you're an NHL player, because dynasties are dead. And I'm going to do a video on how dead dynasties really are. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that he's done it with one team. That he takes $8.7 million is his cap hit and his salary, and he could make a hell of a lot more money than that. He could have. He could have taken Pittsburgh to the cleaners. He could have got more money than what Taves and Kane are making. All he had to do was just say, "Oh, I'm going to do, contract every 2 or 3 years, and then just league max, league max, league max." He could have done that, and I don't think anybody would have blamed him for saying he is the best player in the game. So league max every couple of years, that makes sense, because the salary cap keeps going up. It did at one point keep going up until the Canadian dollar did one of those. But Crosby is, and I say that as a guy who is not a huge fan of Pittsburgh, necessarily. Anybody browsing through and going, well, he has a Pittsburgh jersey and a Pittsburgh hat on. Clearly he's a Penguins fan. Subscribe, watch my videos, go look for my jersey countdown, which was the 50 jerseys, my 50 favorites of the jerseys I have out of the 93 jerseys currently, and it's going to be more soon. The point is, Crosby is not a guy that I view negatively. I know there's a lot of fans who call him a crybaby and talk about him like he's the biggest whiner in the game. And Crosby gets all these calls. Crosby gets calls because he's the best player in the game. Crosby gets calls because referees, officials are going to know. Crosby is one concussion away from potentially being done in the game. And not a massive, like, I know any player is done with a massive concussion. I'm talking like a minor concussion. The kind of thing that any other player who hasn't had one probably shake off relatively quickly, maybe miss a couple of games, could end Crosby's career, because he's had that many. But he keeps playing, and officials take care of him, sure they do. But he still plays tough, and he doesn't stay out of the corners, and he hasn't changed his game. I've watched players change their game when they get injured, and been completely fine with it, because it's like, well, no, he had to change his game, because look, he's on the verge of being injured right out of the league. Crosby is Crosby. You watch Sidney Crosby play the game now, there's no difference between the way he plays the game now and the way he played it 10 years ago, except he's smarter. He's smarter, he's more of a leader, he's more confident, and he is definitely, okay, so another rating I can use for Crosby is leadership. Greatest leaders I've seen in hockey, and the Messier guys are, I can hear them already. Go away. Okay, this is my personal view. My personal view, the greatest leaders on the ice. Gretzky and Lemieux still get those 2 spots. I don't know that they're top 2, because I think Stevie Yzerman I would have number 1. I think I'd have Joe Sakic at number 2, because they both went through so many questions before they were able to win a Stanley Cup. And so many people in both cases said, I don't know if they're going to win. But they did, and they owned it. And they saw struggling franchises through bad days, and they were there for the good. And when they raised the Stanley Cup, you could be very proud of them. Crosby recognized what he's walking into in Pittsburgh. He roomed with Mario. He learned from Mario. Mario helped him along the way. Didn't have to do it, but he did. And they've reaped the rewards since then. Crosby has been a leader. And I might put him number 3 in the leaders category. And I know I'm going to take flack. Go ahead and comment below why I'm wrong. But I'm telling you, if I was going into the trenches and I said, man, I need somebody to lead this team is just not getting it together. Who can get this team to think as a unit and get it together? Stevie Y is the first guy I'd want in his prime. Joe Sakic and Sidney Crosby. Those are the 3. Now now I need somebody to score goals. I'm going Gretzky, Lemieux, but you know, I'm saying somebody who can really motivate my team and lead it and be the inspirational leader. Yzerman playing on one leg, Sakic never complaining when he was on a losing team, and never seeming like an arrogant jerk when he was on a winning team. He always seemed to be down to earth, and just he helped bring that team together. And the Avalanche were fantastic, and it's kind of forgotten how bad the Penguins, how bad the Nordiques were. For Crosby, he gets to the Penguins, and they were a disaster when he got there. And then with Crosby, they get a lot better. People are going to say, well, he's had Malcolm behind him. Okay. And all the other guys I'm naming had other players with them too. Some guy named Forsberg was helping out along the way when Sakic was winning. Some guy named Shanahan came in and helped the Red Wings get over that hump and helped Sakic or helped Yzerman along the way. And Gretzky had the entire 1980s Oilers, and Lemieux had a hell of a team when they won the Stanley Cup in 91 and 92. The point is, that guy you're looking to, that face of the franchise, is Sidney Crosby. Malkin's a fantastic talent. He'll get to that 1,000th point too, and it's going to be a great night for him. And if I'm still doing a hockey channel at that point, I'll do a video for him as well and talk about how fantastic he's been throughout his career and how he's dealt with injuries. But Crosby, tonight, 1,000 points, fantastic. I will link to the Sportsnet article, which has the video of this footage. I'm not going to rewind to it on my TV because that's going to get flagged as copyright right away. And I'm not going to start messing with that stuff. So if you came here looking for the exact footage of it, it'll be linked in the comment section below, or in the description section. Go ahead and leave your comments. How you feel about Crosby, good or bad. And I know there's lots of people who don't like him. But probably number 3 in terms of all-time leaders, and number 3 in terms of best scorers I've seen. And since he doesn't have anybody who's ahead of him on both categories, it kind of gives you a feeling of how I feel about Crosby, as much as I've hated Pittsburgh during a lot of that run. Enjoyed the run last spring, though. It was actually nice and fun to watch, and I have a bad feeling my Capitals pick for the Stanley Cup could easily be derailed by another big push by Sid the Kid. If he looks at his hand and goes, I got room for more rings here. Yeah, I want another one. He can will it to happen. All right, thanks for watching, and I will be back again soon with my other fun video that I had planned and I was going to do, and then this happened. So this is the video you guys are getting for now, and the other video you will get soon.